Hello there guys, Daniel Childs back here again. It's Monday, going to be answering your questions on Added Time once again as we now enter the final week of Chelsea's season. It's been a long season. It's been a dramatic one, but hopefully we are going to end it positively because it always feels better after a weekend when Chelsea have won, especially in that dramatic fashion. So going to be covering the Brighton game on Wednesday and then of course the Bournemouth game at Stamford Bridge on Sunday. Before we do get into answering your questions, just want to shout out the brilliant guys at Alloy Collectors. You can use a discount code to get yourself 15% off and grab one of these brilliant Chelsea metal home shirts that I have been promoting in recent weeks. Really love these. I've got one right here that's already pre-made that does have Thiago Silva. I've shown you this before. It does have Thiago on the back. Obviously, the final week for him as a Chelsea player before he does return to Brazil. So hopefully going to have a wonderful send-off for Thiago. But get down in the description box below. Use my link and use my special code SonOfChelsea at checkout to get yourself 15% off. And as I've been promoting on the channel too, we're doing a giveaway for one of these as well that you can enter. If you haven't already, I know quite a few of you have, but if you want to enter before we close it on Friday, we'll be announcing the winner over the weekend before the Bournemouth game. Give me your favourite Thiago Silva Chelsea moment in the comments. If you're listening back on the podcast, get over to the YouTube channel and click on the video and comment down below your favourite Thiago Silva moment if you want to have a chance to win one of these. But you can currently, even if you don't win the giveaway, you can go over, use my 15% discount. And the good thing about Alloy Collectors, obviously, right now they've got this season's kit, but they're going to have next season's kit. There's going to be some great retro stuff going up on there. So we'll probably be doing more giveaways as well over the summer. But let's get into your questions. Firstly here, via Thomas, who asks, is this late season winning streak going to do more damage than good due to the arrogance of the owners? We all saw Todd's latest clown interview saying it's all coming together when we all know it's papering over huge issues with the assembling of the squad. I don't think we can really say that this winning run is a bad thing for the club. I just don't, because I think getting back into Europe, I think financially sure isn't as significant as getting back in the Champions League, but I think it does put the club back in a more positive direction. I mean, in terms of complacency, you know, in some ways, I think that could be a good thing for Chelsea this summer, because I think that was part of the problem under the previous ownership in the latter years of the Abramovich era, was that we kind of took wrong lessons from really big wins and didn't strengthen the squad when we needed to. I actually think right now a little bit of calm and a little bit of just stability over the summer I think would be key. You know, I'm not that confident us going out there and spending even more in the transfer window is actually the best idea. I don't think changing the head coach is the best idea. I think a summer of stability I think is key. And you know, maybe that arrogance will be like, oh, we're amazing, let's go and spend more. But, you know, maybe it leans more into thinking that their business has been quite good. I still have, you know, major questions over the strategy, and I think it needs to be adjusted now. You've invested in a lot of young talent, and I think the next step is to bring in proven or more experienced heads into the dressing room. I still firmly believe that, even with the wins of recent weeks. But then also, as we've seen in recent games, and especially on Saturday, the number of injuries we've had this season, it makes it very difficult to judge the actual level of this current squad, because, you know, it's not like we've had a full deck to play with and you could really judge where this squad is when you haven't got Nkunku, when you haven't got Reece James, when you haven't got Romeo Lavia, and the list goes on. As I say, I still want to see the squad as best as it can be in terms of how fit it can be, and then I can make a firmer judgment. So, no, I don't think it is. I think it's good. I think what would have done more damage if Chelsea finished without European football again, and we'd had another year where we invested a lot. We don't get European football. There's no sense of progression. The fans feel more negative about things. I can't honestly say that us ending the season strongly is a bad thing. TY14 asks, can Fulham's Robinson come to Chelsea or any other good left back you think? It is a position that I do think Chelsea are going to have to look at because I'm intrigued to see what happens with Marco Correa over the summer. Ben Chilwell's injury problems persist, and you know, you're not quite sure whether he's going to be a player that you can rely upon over the course of a year. That is a real problem. And Ian Matson's going, Lewis Hall's going. Unless you decide to promote from within. I know Boniface has been a really exciting academy product this year that there's been chatter of him potentially coming up into the first team. And as well, we've loaned out Harvey Vale this year to Bristol Rovers. He's going to be returning now. He has played left back, and it's easy to forget that name given the number of young players that have almost emerged since then. But so there are some internal options. But if you were to go out in the market, yeah, I like Robinson. I think Premier League quality. I think Premier League quality of that kind of age, I think he's exactly what Chelsea should be targeting. I think if you're going younger, if they're really adamant on going younger, I would be looking in Liga, where of course we got Malo Gusto. Malo Gusto is great proof that age isn't always a great definitive factor in whether a player is going to be ready for you or not. You know, Gusto has been ready. He's been durable. He's been competent. He's been everything we wanted when we signed basically a backup to Reece James. So I think that there are several options in Liga. I'll link in the cards. I did a video back in, I believe it was January window, of a few of the targets that I was quite intrigued by, who I would have been looking at as a potential left back. So this has been an ongoing problem. So I think Robinson would be a decent shout. It's an area where Chelsea, I think, will be investing within the next couple of windows. So I think getting that position right is obviously key. Stephanus asks, who is your ideal striker for next season? Nicholas Jackson or Christopher Nkunku? You know, I think that for me, the more I've seen Jackson, the more I've been convinced, and the more I look at numbers around him, I saw another stat today that I posted on X that he has more Premier League non-penalty goals than Mohamed Salah. And given Salah is the main penalty taker for Liverpool, it kind of shows something. Jackson doesn't take penalties for us. Has he taken any penalties for us this season? I mean, Cole Palmer has basically taken most of them. And of course, we've seen the arguments around who's the penalty taker, but Jackson has barely taken any penalties this year. And of course, he scored a big goal for us at the weekend. Again, more points towards him. And I just more and more convinced that it's a smarter play for Chelsea again to trust what they have, to see what they have for another year, because it's gotten us to this point with the frustrations and the injuries we've already had. And I think that, you know, Jackson, obviously, I think there's a realistic, path for him to move wider in this current system, because I think he does well down the channel, and maybe Nkunku fits more central. I mean, Cole Palmer has played a little bit central because he's scored so many goals for Chelsea. And I just don't personally think that going out there and spending over 100 million is the way I'm going to go about things this summer, because I don't think it's the smartest play. I don't think it really appreciates what Jackson has done this year, and I do worry you'd end up, spending more money, potentially regretting it, potentially stalling the development of Nicholas Jackson, when actually what you've got there, you've uncovered actually what looks like a really promising striker who could only get better next year. So I'm going to say Jackson, because he's played striker for most of this year. If Nkunku gets back to fitness, I think he makes a huge difference. The only thing I'd say in counter to this, again, if you can find, I'd be looking for someone like Giroud. I'd be looking for someone of an older age who'd be more, I guess, happy playing not the key role, but someone who could come in, add a little bit of competition for Jackson, because I think Jackson has had so much pressure on him this year. And just maybe a plan B, if Pochettino wants it, someone who he can lean on during difficult periods of the season, especially with the big chance now of Chelsea getting European football. That adds more, obviously, weight to the fixture list for next year. So you have to kind of deal with that rotation. So that would be my point. And it's easy to forget David Datcha Fofana has been on loan this season as well, and has done all right at Burnley. So will he return and actually impress in pre-season? So the idea that it's Osimhen or bust, I don't, more and more I think that's just not my solution or my perfect idea of this summer. And lastly, Clayton asks, do you think Petrovic will start the first game of next season? Personally hope so, although he needs to control that 6-yard box for me. Petrovic, I actually think my issue with Petrovic is more so with the ball at his feet. I think that is a legitimate criticism of him, that, he isn't, it's not just aesthetically pleasing, it's also just, the reality. If you have a team that wants to have a lot of the ball and wants to play out from the back, I mean, these kind of sound very cliched things right now, but a team that maybe wants to attract a press from an opponent, but then I contrast that with Sanchez, who's supposed to be good at that, and he has made more mistakes, far more mistakes that have cost Chelsea this season than Petrovic, who everyone tells me is really poor on the ball. I think Petrovic, again, a little bit like when we talk about Jackson, framing him around a very young player coming into a new league, halfway through the season or even before that, becoming our first choice goalkeeper, still with years to grow as a keeper. I think that's the interesting thing about goalkeepers, you have to look at their kind of lifespan usually radically differently to outfield players. You know, it's such a specialist position, and it's key you get that position right. And I'm not sitting here and telling you that Petrovic has been flawless. There haven't been moments where I've looked at him and think he should have done better there. His decision making should have been better there. But I think overall, from what I would have expected of him, I actually think he's done a little bit better, and I think he's been more impressive. I think the big conversation is I'd be probably looking to part ways with Sanchez this summer. It's who you get in. You know, again, it's a really tricky area, I think, to manage goalkeeper, because it's not like outfield positions where you can sort of sell it to a player that, yeah, sure, you may not be first choice, but you can play here, you can play there. There is chance for you to get minutes over the course of a season. Of course, goalkeeper, it's a lot more challenging, and if you sign someone and then they barely play, their development, especially if they are a younger keeper. I think there are some exciting names out there. I think Diogo Costa obviously has been someone that has been touted for some time now. Bento, who's a really exciting goalkeeper from Brazil, who many people are looking at currently and thinking he'd be a smart buy this summer. But then you are maybe buying someone who's going to directly compete with Petrovic, or again, a little bit like in a striker mold, are you looking for someone more experienced, a Willy Caballero type figure? If that's kind of the easiest way or crudest way to put it. So again, I know it might sound lazy to kind of look at old Chelsea players, but someone in that mold, someone who's going to add a little bit of wisdom to that position, because I don't want Kepa back. I don't think Sanchez is going to get any better. So I think you do need to invest in someone. It's just clarifying, are you going to spend actually more money in that position to actually go out there and get what you deem as a number one? I think that's an interesting question, and I'd like to hear your thoughts. I mean, are you happy with Petrovic? Are you not happy with Petrovic? Let me know in the comments below. But that is it for today's Added Time. Thank you so much for submitting your questions. Be back tomorrow for my preview for the Brighton game. Please do hit the like button if you're watching on YouTube. Subscribe really does help the show out. If you're listening back on the podcast, please do give us a positive rating review. Share the show around with friends, hoping to build the Chelsea community. Get involved in that Thiago Silva giveaway if you do want to win yourself one of these brilliant metal home shirts from Alloy Collectors. And I will see you again very soon. All the best.